Good evening, councillors. Welcome to the meeting of the Joint Cabinet Committee of Stratford-on-Avon and Warwick District Council's Cabinet on Thursday, the 18th of December 2025. I'm Graham Leach, the Monitoring Officer and Head of Governance for Warwick District Council. For the benefit of those present who have not been to the Town Hall before, there are no planned fire drills for this evening. Therefore, if the emergency alarm does go out, please make your way out the back of the chamber. Councillors will be reporting to myself and we will tick you off, and do not enter the building again before you are told it is safe to do so. For clarification for those members of the public watching, each council is represented on the Joint Cabinet Committee by 3 councillors. These are Councillors Davison, King and Williams from Warwick District Council, and Councillors Cole, Coucher and Juned from Stratford-on-Avon District Council. In addition to this, there are a number of other councillors from each authority who are observing the meeting, as well as officers being present. The first item of business is to appoint the chair for the meeting from members of the council hosting it. Please, can I have a nominations for that, please? Councillor Williams.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Davison as chair, please.
Is that seconded? Councillor Juned. Are there any other nominations? Have a show of hands. Those in favour, please. That's agreed. Thank you very much. Councillor Davison.
Thank you to Graham Leach, our monitoring officer. I think we're on to item 2 now, which is apologies. Do we have any apologies from the Joint Cabinet? I don't think so. Graham, I think you had some other apologies, though.
Thank you, Leader. I have apologies from Councillor Passingham, who's an observer for the Green Party at Stratford-on-Avon District Council, and also Councillor Whaley-Hoggins, who's the Party Observer for Reform from Stratford-on-Avon District Council.
Okay, thank you. So we're now on to the declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest? No. So we're now to confirm the minutes of the previous meeting, which was about a year ago. I will propose those from the chair. We should note it was about the timetable that we will be looking at again. Thank you, Councillor Juned, for seconding that. If there are no speakers, all those in favour of them being a record, thank you very much. So we're now on to item 5, which is the revised timetable for preparation of the South Warwickshire Local Plan. It is the main item here, and we were to have a speaker, but we don't seem to have. So we will go first of all to the scrutiny chairs, so both from Stratford and Warwick. I suppose we should go to Stratford first. So Councillor Crump, would you like to summarise your discussions, please?
We just organised that Councillor Milton was going to go in first. So
I don't mind. If you wish, you can.
I think he's going on the age before beauty position, so obviously I've got to go first. Thank you for that, Councillor Davison. Yeah, we talked about this on our meeting earlier this week. I think one of our main concerns were relating to the risk register. The two pickle items, number 11 and number 13, to do with team leader and leader themes, poor quality consultancy input, and the high number of representations, and as well as the advisory group management. So we got concerned about those and the resourcing of those positions. Bearing in mind, it's a pretty complex position. We've also got great demand on planning staff, both locally and nationally. And then there's the small matter of 5-year housing land supply to go alongside this as well. I know it's independent, but it's linked as well. So we've got concerns about availability. We did receive assurances that extra resources would be made available if necessary. But we flagged this as still one of the risks and I think one of them, number 11, even though it's gone down to amber, the risk is still 12, which is quite high from the original position of 16. So that is our main concerns. We are mindful of the change in timetable, but because of the built-in flexibility and contingency, that the timetable was still running to plan. And our other major concern related to communications, particularly around the consultation, and to make sure that was cleared again, to make sure that when the consultation process was run, there were still maximum responses, and we felt there should be a summary of the changes from the previous consultations, the additional sites or sites that were taken out. So if that was made clear at the start of the consultation, you've already been consulted on this before. This is our third consultation, so therefore these are the changes, pertinent changes since that last time. So we felt that would be helpful, but communication is a key driver from Stratford's point of view, and hope you'll find those points acceptable.
Thank you, Councillor Crump. I will ask officers to respond to quite a few of those, but can we have the Warwick scrutiny comments, please, Councillor Milton?
Great, thank you, Chair. We considered this at our meeting last night, and I wanted to thank officers for attending, particularly Mr. Clark and Mr. Stray, who gave us a good overview of what was happening. The main points of discussion in our committee were really about the risk around the timetable with that moving. We have some sort of fairly fixed dates that we're heading towards, and we heard quite a lot last night about the challenges of availability with consultancy resource, the challenges with availability of consultees and their resources as well. And I think probably members were slightly concerned that there's an almighty car crash coming at some point, which is going to leave us in a bit of a pickle. So just to sort of sum up the discussions, we highlighted the significant risk that the local plan and the timetable presents to both councils. We also requested in this light that actually officers look at creative ways, and we did briefly discuss the use of AI, to mitigate potential delays to timescales, but whilst also maintaining quality, and placed emphasis on the importance of active travel being considered in the plan, particularly with our consultees. The committee was also keen to encourage the political leadership of the councils to be active in lobbying government ministers for flexibility to ensure that the process can be successfully delivered. We heard a number of references to officers engaging with various civil servants and government, but I think it would be good if the political leadership actually took a role in doing some of that lobbying on our behalf. Those were our comments.
Okay, thank you. Before I go to group leaders, I think it would be good to have officers' responses to those. So there's quite a lot on risk. I don't know if one of you is able to pick that up. Any volunteers from the officers about handling the risks? There are quite a few there, partly the timetable, but a lot on resources as well. So we've got Philip Clark from Head of Housing from Warwick District Council.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And I'm joined today by John Careford, who's Head of Place.
Plan,
Head of
Place.
Yes,
So.
yes. Don't worry. And I'm joined by John Careford, who's Head of Development at Stratford District Council, and Andy Cornford, who's our the Planning Policy Lead within Warwick District Council. Yes, resources. I might say a few words, but invite my colleagues to come in if there's anything to add. And we discussed this at some length at the Scrutiny Committee last night. We are reliant on a lot of input from specialist consultants. We have sometimes struggled to get them to deliver the work on the timetables we would have liked. We have often struggled to actually get consultants engaged in the first place, and that's largely a product of the fact that consultants are telling us that they are inundated with work themselves, because of course the the key point hanging over all of this discussion is the fact that we need to submit our local plan by the end of December next year to avoid having to pivot to a new arrangement under a new plan-making system, the details of which are still to be set out in detail, and that would inevitably put the plan back for a while and generate more work to do. So that's what's driving us, and that is what is driving many councils. I haven't got a figure for how many councils in the country, but it is a significant number of councils who are in the same position. And consultants are being inundated with the work. Equally, some of our key consultees are struggling to meet the demands that the local authorities are putting on for consultee responses. Statutory bodies, organisations like the County Council, particularly, say, in their highway section, there is a huge amount of traffic modelling and analysis and other work that needs to underpin, particularly, obviously, the selection of our sites in our development strategy. And, you know, they are not only dealing with us, but with a number of other local authorities who are doing similar pieces of work. So those are some of the challenges we're facing. We are looking to mitigate those with a series of measures, and we did set those out in the report. But in particular, what we're looking to do is, we are already doing, is having detailed engagement with our consultees, particularly, as I say, the County Council is a main one, and we had a very positive meeting with them a couple of weeks ago, and we're looking to see how we can expedite work packages, so that members and, of course, ultimately local communities have enough information in order to have a meaningful and proper consultation on a Regulation 19 plan, but that maybe still allows other pieces of work to be undertaken between then and the formal submission of the plan. Because as you'll see in the timetable, there's about a 6-7 month period between starting our Regulation 19 consultation and the deadline to submit the plan. So we're working with them on that. We're also getting advice from our barrister. We've engaged a barrister who has huge experience of working on local plans. He actually supported Warwick District on our last local plan about 10 years ago. And he is there to particularly help us think about the evidence that we need to provide, the timeliness of it and the extent of it, because clearly we need to provide enough information for communities and yourselves to have for your decision making. But evidence gathering can go on and never reach an end point. So we have to get that balance right, and he can help us do that. We're also getting support from the Planning Advisory Service. They're part of the Local Government Association on how we can do this as well. The final point I just want to make there is that the Planning Inspectorate have been given a clear direction from the Government Minister that they are to work with local authorities to try to help us to have sound local plans. So they've been instructed not to try to find ways to trip local authorities up, but to try to find ways to give us sound plans. Because, of course, as you know, the government has a growth agenda, and having local plans in place, we would all agree, is the best way to control the growth in that growth agenda. I don't know whether my colleagues want to add anything, but I hope that's helpful.
I'm looking at Councillor Milton to see whether that answered your a request to mitigate delays while maintaining quality.
Chair, if I can come back, I think that, so thank Mr Clark for his answer. That was substantially what we covered last night, I think, in the discussion. I think the point here is that despite, I think officers are making incredible efforts on this, but that doesn't actually, in some ways, give us the comfort that this is not still an incredibly risky plan that, and situation that we're in. We're trying to achieve a lot in a very, 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 very tight timescale in a difficult situation.
Okay, thank you. I will comment on that, but not just yet. Councillor Junaid, but when you come in as well, there was a request for political lobbying. So whether you and I would be prepared to write to
Yes, if I
somebody
could
relevant.
just kind of ask a query, because in 1.5, it does say that the consultancies are now, supporting the work are now in place. So I'd just like, you know, a surety that that is the case. But one of the things, if we are to deliver the houses that government is requiring, this is a government request for that the number of houses to be delivered, I think we need to make it quite clear to them that they need to help us. And I would like to be able to make sure that we are able to get to speak to ministers and civil servants to say that it is in their hands, that they can help us, and I think that should be sooner rather than later. As soon as we can get to have a meeting with the relevant ministers and the relevant civil servants, it would be appreciated. So I think we will begin that if everybody else is in agreement.
Okay, thank you. We're now going to John Careford.
Thank you, Chair. Just to give members comfort, officers hear the concerns that you're all raising about the risks, about the timetable. We are fully seized with the need to get this plan in place as soon as possible. We understand the nervousness and the challenges we've still got, but as I said, we're fully seized to do that, and we will do that. Just to give you those assurances, we will be going out for Reg 19 consultation. We will submit by December. We can't categorically give you, I think anything further than that, because there are lots of moving parts. But I know sitting here and colleagues back in the offices, they are working really hard to make sure we do hit those deadlines. So I just want to try, if I can, to give you the assurances that we hear the concerns, we understand the concerns, we understand the need to get the plan in place, and we are doing our utmost to achieve that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Juno.
And can I also just make sure that we appreciate all the work that's gone on? It's not just officers, it's councillors, the people that have been involved in the advisory group. A lot of work has been done over a long period of time, and I think that should be taken into account as well.
I would certainly agree with that, Councillor Junaid. Officers are working flat out on this. There's an enormous amount. Sadly, we get to see that when the hundreds or thousands of pages are published for the next consultation. And also with the advisory group, there is an enormous amount that they're covering. We'll now go to group leaders, and I think, Councillor Pemberton, you are the only one from Stratford who's, so thank you very much for coming. I believe you're also a member for on the advisory group as well, so your thoughts and comments, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think the majority have been covered. We're all on the same page. We understand the risks and the challenge that officers and members face, and I think that there's certainly a clear desire from all parties to drive the plan to a position where it can be submitted under the current regime, and clearly at Stratford District, our 5-year land supply challenges because of the assertiveness of developers add another layer of urgency to the matter for us. I think I would just pick up on one point that was raised by Councillor Crump that came out from the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and that is that the Regulation 19 consultation is a focused consultation and really looks at, comments around the soundness of the plan. I think as far as the public are concerned, they won't get the nuance of that, and certainly there have been, of necessity, changes from the last consultation, and the suggestion was that in the scrutiny committee at Stratford was that we probably ought to try and go as far as we possibly can in perhaps a sort of soft pre-consultation, if you will, to warm the public up. And Councillor Coucher pointed out with legitimacy that there are risks around that when the evidence base is not fully formed. And the suggestion was that the timeline for that was about Easter potentially. But I think the joint committee should take on board. I think that we need to be innovative about how, and not just be slavish around the 8 weeks. You know, what can we do in advance to get as much out there as possible so that residents in both districts understand where we have moved from and understand what is happening, rather than us run the risk of we actually do it absolutely in line with the process, but the public is left feeling shortchanged. So I think that was something that came out. Other than that, I think there is a recognition of all the work that has gone on, all the work that there is to do, and a broad support to get to where we need to get to before the end of December next year.
Okay, thank you. I will go through all group leaders before asking for comments on that, but do let me know if I miss those points. Thank you very much. Councillor Bode, any comments from your group?
Yes, several. The timetable is critical to us, and there are certain actions that we're going to put in place to make sure they work, and I'd like to know on some of them whether we've actually done it. We talked about procuring AI because of the volume of information we've got. Has that been implemented and is it now running? And what's the estimated time of that completing the task? We're struggling with the County Council. You may have other news on this, on the strategic transport networks, and also national highways who can't say they can't start until the county's finished. And the county say they want longer time. Gives us a problem. This meeting last year said the timetable was for submission on September 2026. It's now December 2026. The earlier date was, it allowed us some flexibility in there. Flexibility is being, as I see it, is being gobbled up as we go through no one's fault, but through the amount of work that needs to be done. And I think we need, on the consultation, you said you're quite happy to write a letter. I think it needs more than that. It needs us to find out which local authorities are actually in the same boat and to make an approach as a group, because there's one council or two councils, it won't do anything. Additional help from the Planning Advisory Service, that's good, but I suspect that will be thinner than we think it is because they'll be helping the others as well. So that's a problem. Where I think we have is political risk of whether we will agree to the plan that comes out if we feel we've been shortchanged on some of it, and that has risks, as has been identified. Now, this is an extremely complex project, and over my working life, I've done quite a few strategic projects. And I think the one thing we haven't got here is actually a project manager responsible for the project who can coordinate the outside people, the contracts we've got, as well as our own team, and work out where we need to put people to actually try and hit this date. Because if we carry on as we do at the moment, I'd put money on we're going to miss the date. So I think we actually need to be grasping this as a significant project. And if it needs an external project manager to be brought in to manage the project, who doesn't need to be a planner, but needs to know how to handle projects, then I think that would be a big benefit to us and lead us perhaps closer to actually hitting that date, because we're rapidly running out. There's been a series of meetings at the advisory group where dates have moved and they're never moving forward. And I think that's crucial that we do something there to grab hold of this project and drive it forward.
Thank you. A lot of pertinent points there. Thank you. Councillor Day, any comments from you and your group?
I'll be Councillor Pemberton. There you are. I'm sure you'll forgive me.
You're punching above there.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I have a couple of points, if I may. First, I'd like to welcome the co-chair of the South Warwickshire Plan Advisory Group, Councillor Nigel Rock, to the meeting tonight, Chairman. And thank you too for acknowledging that the advisory group working closely with their planning officers and consultants, has played a key role in addressing the development of the policies and the strategy for our new local plan, and thus supports the work of this joint cabinet. My first question, and these can be taken on batch, I understand, Chairman, is why is it not possible for the co-chairs to directly address this joint committee? Why is Councillor Rock able to observe but not able to offer comment and support to this important gathering as we build the local plan? That's my first question. Rightly, and moving on to the second, the advisory group carries out its role in a confidential setting, but at each meeting it's decided, which many may be aware, that there are key messages that are not exempt and can and should be circulated to all councillors. We need to be mindful, we've got to take this through the vote. Councillors need to be kept up to pace with the journey that we're going through. The purpose is to ensure that the wider council community of both councils are properly engaged with the progress of the plan making and, as appropriate, given opportunities to be briefed. And we've had a couple of very excellent briefing sessions from officers in the last couple of weeks. So my question, Chairman, really for officers then, the second question of mine, is are the minutes of the advisory group being confidentially circulated to all members of the joint cabinet? And therein too, are the key messages that we agree at each advisory group being reliably circulated to all councillors in a timely manner? So they are my three questions. I'm happy to repeat, and thank you, Councillor Pemberton, for letting me be you tonight.
Thank you. As I say, I'll go through all group leaders, then hopefully we'll pick them all up, but let me know if key ones are missed. So, Councillor Whiteman, any thoughts from your group?
I think most of the points our group had have already been covered. I think we are concerned at the slippage. I think we do feel that there was wriggle room in the previous timetable. It feels now, again, through no fault of anybody, we recognise all the fantastic work that's going on, but it does feel that any further slippage is going to be extremely costly and the stakes are very high here. So we are concerned. I think at ONS last night we got a lot of reassurance on some of the points, the fact that the consultants were in place, and we know the officers are alert to the risks and are on board at pushing it forward. But I think other than in just sharing those concerns, I think most of the points have been covered.
Thank you, Councillor Whiteman. Councillor Phelps.
Thank you. Comments probably more than questions. Firstly, we welcomed the opportunity that officers gave us to look at sites in our particular area. Sadly, two of the three of us work, so daytime meetings make it impossible for them to attend. And it's the same with the advisory group. Our member who was there could not attend because it was a daytime meeting. So I kindly offered to go on. So we do have to remember we want to give everybody as much chance as possible to be part of this plan. But if you work, that's very, very difficult. I'm very new onto the group, so a big learning curve, but it's obvious the amount of work that that group has done over the last few years has been amazing, absolutely amazing. Thankfully, for my benefit, they've decided not to scrutinise the 400-odd pages of technical information, which I wouldn't have a clue where to start at, and actually concentrate on what's really, really important for for this plan and to get it through. Members really welcomed the opportunity to know what was happening. The meetings in both areas the last couple of weeks have been really welcome. They know it's difficult. They know, it's got to be kept confidential, but they're the ones who are going to be voted on it in the end, and they need to know at least as much as possible, which is why I think as a group it was agreed that we would put out as much information as we could give. not to break confidentiality, about what is said and the key messages during those advisory group meetings. So the members are going to be the important ones from now on, because they're the ones who are going to say yay or nay. So we've got to keep them informed as much as we possibly can.
Thank you very much. I will try and pick up one or two of those points, and then obviously to officers, and then let me know what we've missed. First of all, the points about 5-year housing land supply, I think, are hugely important. That's, I think, top of many of our minds, because in both districts there's now the tilted balance, which means developers are more likely to be unconstrained, and the longer we don't have the new local plan in place, the worse that gets. So I think it is crucial, and many of you have mentioned that timeline. Our monitoring officer, Graham Leach, pointed me to a page of whatever it is, the Constitution, which says that all members of Stratford and Warwick councils can attend and can ask to speak. We've got somebody here from Warwick who's asking to speak, and if Councillor Rock wants to put his hand up and ask to speak, I certainly would say that is fine. In terms of the advisory group, what's agreed by them being shared to councillors, that was something in discussion I suggested back in September, I think. I don't think it's happened, but I will ask now officers whether it has happened or whether it can happen. So Councillor Day was suggesting the key confidential bits to the joint cabinet, so we know what's going on, and the agreed bits, which are still confidential, to all councillors. Can those be done routinely from advisory group meetings?
Sorry, you'd like us to respond on that specific point? Yeah, you'll forgive me. It was a few weeks ago, quite maybe a couple of months ago, that we had this discussion. In the advisory group, we did review the terms of reference of the advisory group, and the advisory group members made some helpful suggestions. What we haven't yet been able to do is find an opportunity to get those formally agreed by both cabinets, which is what we need to do. But for operational purposes, and forgive me, I'll have to go back and refresh, and if I get this wrong, I'm happy to correct it later in writing. I think the decision was that the minutes would remain confidential within the group, and maybe, forgive me, Councillor Rock, to put you on the spot, but if you would like to ask to speak, you might be able to help me here. The minutes will remain confidential within the group. However, the key messages, I think there was an issue that the key messages weren't being always disseminated to everybody. So rather than the previous arrangement, which was to ask the members of the group to disseminate to other councillors within their own political groups, and of course we now recognise that not all political groups are represented on the advisory group, that role would be taken by officers. So the answer, I think, to Councillor Day, to your question is that you should be getting the key messages. We actually haven't had many meetings of the advisory group recently, but certainly we'll take that away and we'll make sure that happens. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope, Councillor Pemberton, your main bit was about comms in advance, which I know is a challenging one, because I'm very keen that officers focus on getting the plan as good as possible rather than fielding questions. But I think it links to the preferred options responses haven't been collated and publicised, and it may be that that could be done in advance. So I'm turning to officers again. Before the Reg 19 consultation starts, is there some information that can be made public to help, I wouldn't say warm up, but give some sort of guidance on what's going to happen?
Yes, thank you. Again, I'll start, but if my colleagues want to come in. And actually, it relates to the question Councillor Bode asked about the use of AI and procuring that. We are looking to use a company that will use AI to help us with some of the summarising and analysing of the over 22,000 consultation responses that we received. because of the need to make sure that we procured the AI and we tested our own procurement processes in terms of using AI, we wanted to make sure we did this absolutely properly, and notwithstanding that you might ask AI to do some of the heavy lifting of the work, you do need that human officer oversight. And so for that reason, it took us longer to complete the procurement. But yes, that procurement has now been undertaken. The work is currently being done, and our expectation is to get the document, the public consultation response, prepared and published and with members by the end of February.
Can I just check whether that will go public, though, so that the members of the public can see it?
So John Kevin's asked to come in, but just on that, forgive me, on that point, our normal practice is to share it with the advisory group before it goes public to see if they have any questions, but absolutely would need to go in the public domain.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, yeah, I think just on that point, I think the key focus of the work with the advisory group in the new year will be how we communicate and engage with both the wider memberships of both councils as well as the public and communities more widely. So we can't say definitively how we're going to do that, but again, we hear the points being made, and we just need to think that through to ensure that communities are aware as early as they can be of information that is let's say accurate, for want of a better word. What we don't want to do is release information that isn't the finished product and is still liable to change, because that will just cause confusion, and that will be the worst situation to have incorrect information in the public domain, communities confused or unclear about what's going on. So the better approach would be to, in that instance, sort of have the information not in the public domain until we're ready to release it. But as I say, we hear the points being made, and we need to look at that with the advisory group to see how we can best do that, because, as I say, we need to ensure that communities understand what the plan is trying to achieve and what the content is, so they're ready and set up for the consultation when it does launch. The other point I'd make is that with the democratic process, there will obviously be a lead-in time to the consultation. So whilst there's a formal start date, the information will actually be in the public domain in advance of that in any event.
Okay, so I think it's back to you on the advisory group to continue those conversations. I think the point about information going prior to the actual formal start of the consultation might be a time where the comms has to be really good. Councillor Bode, I believe, like many, were concerned about the dates being missed, as I am as well. He had a he asked, perhaps unfairly, who's coordinating everyone? Do we need an external project manager? All being coordinated officers, I hope. Can you respond to that? How can we have assurance that the deadlines will now be met?
Thank you, Chair. Well, I think just to reiterate the comments I made earlier, officers are committed to those deadlines. We're doing everything we can to meet with them. We've got a range of skills within the team to do that, and we're going in at various different officer levels to ensure that the implications of the work is understood by other organisations. So we're in a good position to hit those deadlines, and to say, just to give members the comfort that we will hit them, because we have to ultimately.
And I'm sure there isn't, but no need for an external project manager.
Well, I would say we had brought in an external project manager. I mean, I think Councillor Boat said they don't have to be a town planner. I think in a role like this, and I understand his point entirely about the distinction between project management and then doing the technical work, but I think to have that town planning understanding of what it is you're asking the project to deliver is important, and we do have a full-time project manager that we brought in that has been appointed and paid for by the two councils.
Okay, I hope that's answered the main points that have been raised. Councillor Rock, would you like to say anything? Hopefully new points.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is working, is it? I think the first thing I would like to say, unsurprisingly, I agree with the group leaders on my left, that because I happen to be on the advisory group, and I thank them for their contribution. I think the first thing I'd like to say is that the advisory group has been increasingly muttering about the timetable and the risks as things have become clearer or possibly less clear as we've gone forward. I think the structures that we've had in terms of an advisory group reporting effectively to this this body has served us well, sort of up until the summertime, really. However, as it's emerged and we get into the points where we've got to make, and I can feel Councillor Pemberton nodding next to me, as we get to make the really quite tough calls on where we've actually got to do stuff. I have questioned, and I think others have, whether that structure is going to serve as well as we go forward. Now, I know, and Councillor Day referred to that as well, I know we don't want to get involved in organising the deck chairs on the Titanic, but I have questioned whether we continue to have the right structure. And as also been said, we will need to carry the councillor community with us when we get to some of these difficult points. And as also it's been said by Mr. Careford, we have had to do these things in a back room, in a quiet, dark place for good reason. But that has been a difficult area, and we've got to the point where we don't want surprises being launched upon certainly the councillor community that then take them by surprise and give us some sort of hold up, and we've got some difficulty. So that, I think those structures need to evolve. AI was mentioned a few moments ago. Now, AI and dealing with these, we've been too successful with the consultation. We've got 22,600 responses, I think. And like a sad anorak, I've been going through some of those responses to get the flavour of them. Now, clearly I've not read them all. But we talked about AI, and some of us are very sceptical about that. But on the other hand, you know, we're not dealing with some of the bizarre things that says some of us at Stratford work for Peterborough District Council, which if you put your stuff in there. But we've been talking on the advisory group about using AI for quite a long time, and we're still talking about it now. We need to get on top of these responses to make sure we do listen to what those responses have said. So we do bake them into the decisions we're going to take. So I think, you know, there is, I don't want to be too critical. We're faced with quite a mountain to deal with, but we do have to grapple with this. And I think those are the noises that we've made in the advisory group for some time. So I hope those are new points that, so I support what's been said, but I think we've spent quite a lot of time looking at a lot of detailed reports, some 400 pages, and I think we've probably been down in the weeds in the short grass without looking at our eyes on the horizon. They're intended to be constructive comments, and I'm certainly not having to go. I'm looking at the officers over there. I don't know whether they're going to be throwing darts at me, but those are, I think, the points to take forward, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Rock. I'll take 2 points on that. One is the use of AI. I think, Phil Clark, you said the preferred options consultation will be wrapped up by February, was it? So can you just say that? So AI must be being used now and you're well on the way.
Yes, forgive me, I thought I'd made that, yes, sorry, forgive me, I thought I had said. Yes, we have used a company that is using an AI tool to help us do summarising and analysing of the public consultation response. As I've said, there will be some human manual people oversight by officers in that. So it's not one of these press the button and the job's done for you. And actually, it shouldn't be like that. But yes, that's been done, and that will be by the end of February.
Thank you. I note in your other point about no surprise and bringing councillors with us, but I'd like to move on very quickly because we've spent quite a long time already. Councillor Chilvers, you asked to speak. If you can make it really short and make sure it's points that haven't been raised already.
Okay, thank you very much for allowing me to speak, and thanks to the Joint Committee and the Advisory Group and officers for grappling with the plan. I'd like to request that the Joint Committee add additional recommendations or an additional recommendation to their report this evening. And that's a request that the Joint Committee include in the timetable 3 things. Firstly, provide written terms of reference to Warwickshire County Council Transport Planning, emphasising the plan requirements of prioritising active and public transport solutions as part of our 20-minute neighbourhood. And I think that one is, we really, really need to make sure we get this interaction with transport planning right first time. We can't afford a delay and backwards and forwards on that. And I think it's really important that we are really stipulate written down what we are after on that. And there's some kind of quite complex modelling things on it. So that's the first one. The second one is a request that you consider investigating whether the southern arm out to the university of very light rail should be deemed essential for the build out of SGO1. This is one of our critical sites, and potentially that southern arm of VLR could be a massive, big piece of infrastructure in that active transport, but we need to find out whether it can or can't be deemed essential. And if we don't get on and do that now, again, we're going to run out of time. So again, I'm asking the committee just to commit to do that investigation. And then the third one is to ask you to plan further work as far as possible to work out how we can increase projected build-out rates and densities in neighbourhood centres near transport hubs. And again, I think we all know how important build-out rates and density calculations are in the delivery of this plan. And I think I would really ask the committee to really, by putting this on public record and ask for it, I know the officers are doing work on it already, but I think it would really help to just show that that is a priority for us. So, yeah, thank you very much, Chair, for allowing me to speak, and those are the things I'd request that you consider this evening.
Okay, thank you. I'll now go to the Cabinet members, and the normal protocol, I believe, is to ask the portfolio holders, Councillors Couch and then King, if they want to make any points. Doesn't preclude you from coming back later, but on the existing recommendations or anything you've heard so far. So, Councillor Couch, please. Can you...
Sorry. I'm happy with the revised timetable as we've got at the moment. Clearly, there's absolutely no room for error there, and everything has to work within that. But I think that's the straitjacket now that we are working within, and we need to make it very clear to both consultants and to consultees that actually they have got to perform within that time, so that we can take that forward. I think that's the most important thing tonight. I think if we start to talk about individual things, we could have a long list of addendums to our recommendation here. We'd love to. We would highlight a whole series of individual things we'd want to put into the public domain. I don't think that's the purpose of tonight, frankly. I think tonight is talking about the really important issue in terms of how we're going to complete and deliver
this plan, and that's really what the recommendation is about. If we start to get to fly off in other directions, then I think we could talk about a whole raft of individual proposals we'd quite like to see. I think we're already looking very much at increasing densities across the whole piece, and particularly there, because in terms of how do we minimise the take up of green land, and particularly green belt land, for what we have to do. I think I'll leave it at that, Chair, at this point.
Thank you, Councillor Coucher. If you just press your button again, that would be great. Thank you, Councillor King.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, a lot has been said about the programme, and I'm not going to repeat any of it, except to say that I'm also worried about it. Just on a different point, though, Councillor Rock mentioned structural changes. I think it'd be useful to hear what his ideas, if he's prepared to mention them in this forum, what they may be, because they could be useful when it comes to considering ways that we can yet slim down the timetable. I've noticed that there are a couple of, looking at the schematics here, there are a couple of weeks which are put in there, one of which, for example, is not submitting something or a date being chosen because of half term in February, and it seems to me that that might be useful for children who've got time off, but in terms of our programme, I think it's more important than allowing gaps for that kind of thing, and we need to look even closer to make sure that there aren't any gaps. We just don't have that time. We have to reassure our residents that they may find it tricky to understand the balancing act that we have before us, that if we don't get this through by the date that we set before us now, next December, we're going to be, all of us are going to be in a completely different place. And we have to work really hard to try and do something about that, whilst at the same time, I think the comments that have been made about bringing councillors and the public along with us, it is a really difficult balancing act, but that's what we're here to do. So I'm endorsing most of the points that have been made here. I do think we have to work even harder to slim this programme down. And then perhaps there is the element in the room which we haven't touched on yet of Long Marsden development and how that dovetails into the whole discussion about the timetable. I think if we have time, we should try and discuss that a bit, because it is such a fundamental part of the plan. Other than that, I think for now that's it.
Thank you. You can gather I feel this is really important for our residents, so I'm prepared to take some time on it. So apologies if you were hoping for a quick meeting, because we've been going nearly an hour so far, and I think it may take a while longer. So turning to other Cabinet members, any comments or views from any of you? Councillor Williams.
Yes, thank you. I won't repeat the comments about concern about the timetable. I think they've been made explicitly. I would just like to reflect on Councillor Chilver's proposals and just reflect those slightly differently than have been already reflected so far. I note that one of the issues about making sure this timetable works is public confidence and political support. I hope officers will agree that the recommendations that are being proposed by Councillor Chilvers are about making explicit activities which you would want to pursue anyway. I mean, in terms of having a plan where we're absolutely sure that the developments are sustainable and they're well connected. We know about reducing car dependency, improving air quality, creating healthier and more inclusive communities. We have some very specific and unique opportunities in front of us with the very light rail in SGO1, which is one of our strategic sites. And the issues about density and build out, if we can improve densities, if we can improve build out rates, then it reduces the demand on our resources, but particularly on the green belt. And those are matters which we already know from the consultation to date that the public are hugely angst about. So I'd like to formally propose to the committee that we do accept the additional recommendation, hopefully drafted by Councillor Chilvers, because I think what it will ensure that we do is we don't miss these important points, and that we are in a stronger place to bring our political colleagues and the public with us. So through whatever process Graham Leach would like to advise us, I would like to formally propose that additional recommendation to tonight's proceedings.
Thank you. I think all that then needs a seconder. And if we have one of those, I think we then turn to officers and see if they have views, and then there may be a debate. Councillor King, seconding from Councillor King. So if officers would like to comment on those, have you got what the proposed recommendations are? Yes, so if you can comment on those, and then we'll see what Cabinet colleagues say.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I suppose the first comment to make is a little bit like Councillor Coucher said before, that these are important points that we need to consider in the plan, but it's not all that clear how they relate to the timetable. So I think the wording, if this is to remain, I think the wording of the recommendation, certainly at the start, would need to be different.
Sorry, can you just read out the start you would like? Councillor Junid?
I think they're all important points, but they are already it's the kind of work that's already being done as part of the South Warwickshire local plan. That, making sure that sustainability is done, etc. I think we need to keep the two things separate. We do need that. We need the sustainability. We need the transport solutions. We need light rail because we've actually got light rail providers within our area. We need a lot of these things, but we must not allow it to slow the timetable down. That's the key part. As long as the work can be done within the local plan, that's not a problem, but we must not allow the timetable to slip, because that is the key message key thing we've got to get today is to make sure that we get our South Warwickshire local plan through to the inspection on the due date. That's the key part. But I think these other things are all going to be able to be considered anyway.
Thank you. I believe Councillor Chilvers made the point, but it was also made last night at Overview and Scrutiny, that we don't have the luxury of time to do sort of ping-pong with county about transport. So the point is to make it really explicit that the word go.
I mean, on the transport one in particular, I think this is part of a bigger issue, bigger thing. We do have to engage with the Warwickshire County Council, but we also have to make sure that we are engaging with government, because we cannot do this on our own. We have to be able to get the funding from government to allow some of the infrastructure, particularly the road and transport infrastructure, and other parts of this, the ability to deliver. We have to be able to make the case that it is the government that is saying that they want 1.5 million houses across the country, and they have to help us. So there's a two-pronged. We make sure that the National Highways and the County Council are working with us. We have to work in partnership. It's key. But we also need to work with government, and that is also a key part of it. But the timetable and making sure that we keep to the timetable, I think, is the thing that all of us want the most, making sure that we do not drift.
So I think, Councillor Juned, you've raised 3 points. I think if we stick to the one that is about the speed of the timetable, given the points that Councillor Williams is proposing, the point here is that if we don't give absolute clarity, and then it comes back, whether from our own officers or the county, we then don't have time to get it right. So can you let me finish this time, please? So it's the idea of this is to save time, not to waste time, because the experience Councillor Chilvers has related to me is that there can be a tendency in county to play lip service to active travel. They kind of say they've done it, but not to the depth we want. And if they do that and it comes back, we can't say that's no good, do it again, because we'll have run out of time. So it's to save time. In terms of the confidential briefing, we can't discuss, but in terms of the sites and the build-out rates and so on, as Councillor Williams has said, if we go with very conservative, in the non-political sense, build-out rates, that inevitably means more sites need to be allocated. So that is a political choice. I know that we have views from officers and we're back to hear it, but ultimately that's a political choice whether we say we have very slow build-out rates, therefore we allocate more land. The same with the density. And again, if we let officers do all that work and it gets to, say, April, and we say we don't like that, do it again, we've wasted time, we haven't saved time. So the whole point of discussing it now and the recommendation is to save time because we've been absolutely clear what we're wanting officers and consultants to do. I think Andrew Cornfoot would like to come in on that point.
Yes, thank you, Chair. If you don't mind, if I could say a few words about the three different points that have been raised in that recommendation. So in terms of the first one, which is about emphasising to the County Council Transport Planning Team the requirement of prioritising active and public transport solutions, I think it's important to say that the County Council's local transport plan, so LTP4, does focus on active travel and public transport, and that is the main policy document that they have to consider, which sets the context for the transport work that they undertake. At the national level, the NPPF also states that transport issues in plan making should identify and pursue opportunities to promote walking, cycling and public transport use. So again, the County Council and their consultants must have regard to that when they're undertaking the strategic transport assessment work and modelling work. As recently as yesterday, we had a meeting with the County Council and their consultants, and it was the consultants themselves rather than anyone at Warwick or Stratford emphasising that they need, as part of their work, to look at active travel opportunities first before arriving at other kind of mitigation to deal with residual vehicle impacts. So I have no issue with the point Councillor Chilvers is making here, because I already have full confidence that the County Council and the two districts are on the same page on this particular issue.
Okay, thank you. But I think you're saying you have no concerns with it being a recommendation either, because you're saying it will happen anyway. Our concern is it won't. So if we have it in, there's no problem, is there?
Yeah, I mean, it's entirely up to members whether you have that as a recommendation or not. My personal view would be that these are detailed points, again, like Councillor Coucher was saying, that we could end up with a long list of detailed points. So in my opinion, I don't think this needs to form a recommendation. However, if you as members wish for it to be a recommendation, it causes us no concerns, that particular point.
Councillor Coles.
Thank you. I think we're probably all on the same page, and it's more in a question of which route we take to get there. I think I would have to agree with my colleagues that the timetable is the one we're fretting about this evening. And I wonder whether perhaps to avoid the concerns of having a long list, that we simply add an addendum to our recommendations, that we remind our partners of the requirements that are already being in place. So it's a sort of an overarching, perhaps, reminder of what we are asking and have been asking to be taken into the work already, and that would encompass the work that's already being done. Excuse me. you know, the work is there, it's been discussed in the travel things, we're all agreed with the density and the voiding of green thing, of using greenfield land, that perhaps in order to be mindful of that, but also move the focus back to the urgency of meeting the needs of the timetable, that we simply say that, you know, and obviously you're the experts on how to write this, that we are mindful of the requirements that we need that have already been discussed, and we would urge them to continue to be mindful of them, rather than accidentally diverting ourselves down a sort of diversion and into making that list, or having to make resource available to deal with that list when the work is already being done. Sorry, I'm sensing not entire clarity in my delivery there, but do you see what I mean?
Sorry, I don't, because I think it's the same point Councillor Junaid made, and my response was that if we provide clarity now, we have more confidence we'll get well, it may not be the answer we want, but the question that we want will have been answered. Whereas if we just trust that they will do it, when in the past they haven't done it, it then leaves us too late. So I can't see where you're gaining time by let's just be vague and hope for the best. Councillor Williams.
It's kind of nonsensical to say we'll take it out and that will speed us up. Because by taking it out, we're actually losing the focus on what we need to be focused on. Because of the time it is eroded, we need to make sure that our officers are focused on the things that we really want them to do in the time which has been made tighter. And I was minded by the comments in the Warwick District Overview and Scrutiny Committee, how important it was to produce a good plan on time, not just any plan on time. And the spirit of this recommendation, I think, is just simply to keep us focused on some important principles which will help us deliver a good plan. And for that reason, I'm asking you to support it.
Councillor Coucher.
So if we're going to have things in relation to Warwick, I think we need to put a whole load of a recommendation here for inclusion in relation to Stratford as well. Because I think this is really is dancing around on the head of a pin in some respects. We've had endless discussions with the County Council. They are fully aware of the urgency of this matter. So all we're doing is actually just reinforcing that, which I think is actually diluting what is the purpose of this recommendation today, which is to agree a timescale and a timetable that is firm and is clear and everybody is working to. And if we add extra bits to it, then I think actually all you're doing is obfuscating, frankly, the message we're trying to give out from this joint committee. And I think actually, therefore, the situation is not therefore as clear. You know, we would want, obviously, to discuss, and Councillor King has already raised it, the whole issue of access to south of the river of the Avon, which is a major issue for us. You know, this is a matter of detail. It's just like, you know, talk about light rail to serve a particular site. We could all talk about access arrangements for all the strategic growth areas here. I think we are in danger of moving away from what the purpose of this recommendation and this meeting today, which is really to agree the timescale and have total clarity on that and a totally united position, as I think Mr. Cornford has said already, of the County Council and the two district councils in terms of making sure that we're going to stick to it. So I'm really I'm really concerned at the moment that what we're doing here in terms of what we're discussing is not clarifying matters, it's obfuscation, and this is going to lead to potential delay, which I think is really, really unfortunate.
Thank you, Councillor Coucher. I'm struggling why it's obfuscation when the officers said it's unnecessary, but there's no problem with it. They don't have a problem with it. I would like on this to discuss the other bits, because we've done the first recommendation. The very light rail you're saying is just one site, and perhaps I take your point there, Councillor Coucher, that that's perhaps a bit specific, and that's for maybe Warwick councillors to take up. So I can accept that. The increasing densities and build-out rates, I think, is pretty fundamental, though, because this determines how many green fields get concreted over. And so I think this is a really important thing we discuss, because it's in the plans at the minute, very slow build-out rates, and relatively low densities in the neighbourhood centres, which this is fundamental. We can't just sort of wait and leave it, because those are both political decisions. They need to be made now. Otherwise, we are jeopardising the plan. We're leaving it too late if we wait till April and say, oh, we don't like that. Councillor Junod.
Perhaps the officers could help, but I understand that some of the new, planning infrastructure bill has received royal assent, got royal assent today. The National Planning and Policy Framework is out for consultation, but I believe that they already have within them the requirements for higher density and also various other things that, and also proposals that if we show making certain decisions, that they could be taken out of our hands and decided by ministers. But I think the density rates are being covered by some of that legislation, but I don't know whether I'm quite correct on that one. But some clarification would be helpful.
Can we have clarification on those points?
Can I just make a general point?
Sorry, can we have a response to Councillor Junod's questions?
So I can't recall the detail of the infrastructure bill. Yes, it's got royal consent, and there are various aspects to it around the entire planning system that we do need to take into account. I can't recall the exact point about density, but I did want to make a general point about density, if I may, Chair.
So I just turn to Chris Elliott, our Warwick District Chief Executive.
I don't know the absolute wording, but I'll just ask you to take a common sense view. Legislation cannot legislate for specific densities, for specific sites, in a whole number of possible locations with a whole variety of circumstances. Any such legislation would be mad, and whatever you think about the government, I don't think it's quite that mad. So I think what you have got is a policy to encourage higher densities, which is actually what yourselves are advocating. So I think there's a consistency between what the NPPF says, but of course, the kind of planning policy framework is a bit like an onion skin. So you've kind of on the outside, you've got the National Planning Policy Framework, and as you get closer to the centre, you get more detail, it gets much more relevant to the local circumstances. And here, key bit is, our local plan is that, if you like, the next layer of the onion skin of planning policy. It's the next layer in. And I think what this wording is intended to be very clear, the next stage of your local plan, your submission version, in a sense is your proposed plan. This is ideally what you would like to have the inspector to approve, in effect. And therefore, if your approach is you want to minimise the release of open countryside and to maximise the development potential of any sites you do develop, then clearly having a policy which says you want to have appropriate densities in appropriate locations related to the degree to which they have that connectedness, whether that be bus, by road, bicycle, foot, or whatever, then that should be very, very clear. And that does translate into things which are relevant to what you're intended to do in the rest of the local plan. Because this will say, well, actually, if we're able to increase densities, that might mean, for example, on, say, some of the smaller non-strategic sites, you don't need to release as many. That is actually quite important, and that is part of the timetable, because it means if you were to do that, then there's fewer sites you actually have to do transport assessments for example. I'm not saying that would happen, but that's what you're trying to drive, is to be really, really economical about the land which is released for development. In order, if you want it equated to money, it's trying to get the best value of any site which is released, that you get the best value out of it in terms of housing or other development. That's not to say bad, because you can do densities which is really high, but actually it's not really very good development. So that's the counterbalance. So I think that's where there is a link between some of the comments which are about the what and how they translate to some of the actions which officers are having to undertake to meet the timetable, which everyone acknowledges is very challenging. And quite frankly, we need to be, I suppose, to try and be as smart as possible. And in one way, it sounds ironic saying this, but to do as least as possible, but for maximum effect. So that's, I think, is the rationale. I'm putting that into planning speak, so apologies for all.
Can I just say that's very helpful.
Sorry, we've got Councillor King, then Councillor Cole, and then you. So, Councillor King, please.
Thank you. Could we just go back to the officers for some more thoughts on point 3, the recommendation, please?
Thank you. Officers?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to give members some comfort, we are undertaking further, well, we've got consultants undertaking further master planning work, looking at the new settlement locations and the other strategic growth locations. And as part of that commission, they are looking at density issues and build-out rates. So officers have arrived at some initial assumptions, but they are being sense-checked and looked at in detail by the consultants. I mean, ultimately, what we aim to have is a plan with robust assumptions that can be defended if challenged at examination. And perhaps similar to a comment Chris Elliott made, the assumptions will vary from site to site depending on the specifics of that site. You know, the size of the site and the infrastructure requirements of a particular site will impact upon build-out rates. The location of the site will impact upon the appropriate density of the site. So I don't think it's necessarily a blanket one-size-fits-all across the South Warwickshire area. Any assumptions that have been made to date by officers around build-out rates, as I say, will be sense-checked, will be scrutinised by our consultants, but they have been based on officer experience, but also national experience. So there's widely used documents that are publicly available, which look at the speed of build-out on housing sites, looking at different scales. So, you know, we've been considering that documentation when arriving at any initial assumptions, and it's fair to say that actually at planning appeals, the inspectors quite often would also refer to that same guidance which is out there. I think I'd just like to make another point though, that whilst we as officers absolutely take the point from members, understand the point about if we can deliver to slightly higher densities, then that's slightly less greenfield land that we might need to use for development. We understand that, so we're kind of supportive in principle, but we do need to ensure that we don't overestimate likely build-out rates, because if we did that and then those sites don't deliver at those higher, more ambitious rates, it's more likely that we'll end up in a position of then not having something like a 5-year housing land supply or falling foul of the housing delivery test in future. So we absolutely need to be realistic and also have densities that are at a viable level and will be delivered by developers. We can't be proposing something that is so abnormal for the market that it just won't be delivered, because we won't have a deliverable plan and actually we probably won't get past the examination. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'll just say 2 quick points. I don't think that's what the recommendation's saying. It says as far as possible. And also, these are long-term things, and there's a review every 5 years, isn't there, of the local plan. So obviously, if the assumptions on build-out rates are slightly too optimistic, then the reviews will pick that up. So I don't see that as a problem. So I now have Councillor Coles. Okay, Councillor King.
Sorry, just to follow on, thank you, Chair, that would officers be able to assure us that were these well, on point one, we've already heard that it's a moot point, effectively. On the other two recommendations, can they assure us that this will make no difference at all to our timetable to have these recommendations in? I mean, that's what we're here to discuss tonight. So I take Councillor Couch's point, we're here to discuss the timetable. However, if we are going to accept these recommendations, can they be accepted? Can we hear that that will make no, as far as officers can say, it will make no difference at all to the amount of consultation time needed to, if we're going to adopt them? Surely that's the point.
My point on that is if they make assumptions that councillors disagree with, that's when we waste time. That's why we need clarity now. Councillor Coles.
Thank you, actually. We're broadly similar argument. I think we just, because this is quite a late stage, and I do understand the arguments. My biggest concern, again, is the hovering gods of the law of unintended consequences, that perhaps this is in, as you say, in the work being done already, and these have been requested already, and it is the direction generally that we are travelling. If we put in something that, without realising, is going to add in a delay, and we can't wriggle anymore, that's going to be a bigger problem for both districts than essentially reinforcing the directions essentially that we've given to be included in the creation of the plan anyhow.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think we're all trying to avoid delay, but we're arguing the opposite way, which is quite curious. Councillor Junid.
No, I just would like to hear the what the officer's view is of whether it would delay the timetable. I mean, the principles are not, I'm not averse to the principles. It's making sure that the timetable is not delayed. I had assumed that these were things that we'd be doing anyway, things like build-out routes and etc. But I just want to make sure that the timetable is not delayed. So provided we can get that assurance, I don't have a problem with it.
I think what prompted this bit was Warwick District councillors were quite horrified about how slow the build-out rates were in the assumptions when they saw the plan. So that was the issue.
Yeah, I mean, the build-out rates are often due to an awful lot of other things like, you know, skills and market and a whole host of other things as well that are not always in our control, unfortunately, or you know.
I'll say this point now because I think officers will prompt me to say it anyway. I agree, and we know that developers build at what's best for their profits, not whatever the targets are by government. And I think the 1.5 million in this parliament is highly optimistic, and it doesn't actually matter where we put what we allocate, it just won't happen. And that is a problem wherever we put it. If we look at one site and we say, well, it won't build out fast enough, then we have another site, well, both of them will then build out slower. So it doesn't solve the problem by giving more sites. All it does is developers then cherry pick and don't do, and we end up not really having a plan. Anyway, you asked whether asking officers now to increase or look, what is it? As far as possible to increase projected build-out rates and densities in neighbourhood centres and near transport hubs. If asking them to do that actually slows the plan down or not. So officers, please.
Thank you. I think certainly recommendations, the first and third one, so the active travel and the density, I don't think it does slow the plan timetable down. I think the second recommendation around the VLR could. I take the point that, just to give members comfort, we're already doing this work regardless, but say it doesn't, the first and third don't affect the timetable. I think just the point again to give perhaps Warwick members the comfort, the density assumptions and build out rates are probably on the Conservative side at the moment, and that is deliberate, and that is because we don't want to over-egg the pudding it's better to be more cautious now as we firm things up, because if sites have to come out for other reasons, it means that we can then increase densities and not need to find replacement sites. So it's stemming from pragmatism rather than any sense from officers that the desire for sort of low density living. So just to give members that comfort. But yeah, I think looking at colleagues, certainly the first and third recommendations, I think we're content on that basis.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Thank you for those comments. I think we're getting close to some type of agreement, so I'm with Councillor Chilver's support. I think we should remove the second recommendation, because I think there's a reasonable argument that that's specific to Warwick, although the principle of using innovative transport isn't. But I'd be happy to withdraw that. So we have points A and C. And I'll just make the point that as councillors, the public will expect us to be seen to be doing our best. And in some ways, this is written to help to give that assurance, to say to our officers, use your limited and pressed time in the best way to get the best possible outcome for the public. And I thank Chris Elliott for his helpful observations on that. So I'm proposing to remove the middle recommendation.
Can I also make one which may come later on the first one? So thank you for that. At the moment, it sort of implies the first one that it's not happening already. So I'm suggesting wording that may be disagreed with, but for the first one is to continue to prioritise active and public transport solutions as part of 20-minute neighbourhood principles. Would that be more acceptable to... So I think we have a proposal. So, Councillor Williams, if you understand it, if you're happy with it, if you can read out what the recommendations are now, and then I'll turn to Councillor King as seconder to see whether he agrees with them.
So I think that we include in our timetable, the South Warwickshire Local Plan timetable, terms of reference to Warwick County Council transport planning emphasise the requirement to continue to prioritise active and public transport solutions as part of the 20-minute neighbourhood principles, and that C, or 2 as it will be, plans for further work to as far as possible to increase projected build-out rates, densities in neighbourhood centres and near transport hubs.
Councillor King?
Yes, I'm fine with that.
Thank you. Do I have any other speakers? Can we move to a vote on that then? Oh, sorry, go on.
Apologies, Leader, and for joint members' benefit, actually, I think it should start off that the joint committee agrees to the following for officers too, if that makes sense, because it's not about the timetable, it is somewhat separate. So it's a nuance, but I think that was the point that all of you were making in that debate. It's not necessarily about the timetable, it's about other work as well. And I think you all wanted that clarification. I'm getting nods generally around the room. Sorry.
Just for clarification for everyone here, though, it is about the timetable in that we're having clarification now so that it doesn't come back later and say, oi, that's not what we wanted. Yeah. But the wording is fine there. We are okay to vote for these bits now, is that right? And then we continue.
Continue with it.
Yes. So all those in favour of those? Okay, thank you very much. Yeah. I had a couple of other points. I will raise them now. Like many people, I've had concerns with the timetable, and I'm feeling that we need to save time wherever we can. Now, I've had quite a lot of pushback, robust conversation with officers. And so, obviously, Cabinet members' views will be really important. I'm suggesting, but not as strongly as maybe I might, that the first recommendation, once it's said, is added subject to noting with concern that this proposed 6-month delay to the Regulation 19 consultation gravely risks failing to meet the government's December deadline. I think that's been shared by pretty well everyone. Then modifying the timetable so that this consultation goes live on the 18th of May instead of the 8th of June. That's finding ways to save 3 weeks. It's not much, but I think it's really important that we do emphasize that we need to push forwards as quickly as possible. And then providing councillors with key milestones that are required to meet this tight deadline. At Warwick scrutiny yesterday, there was a lot of, can we see what the steps are, so we have more assurance it's moving forwards. So that's my proposal for for changing recommendation 1. So I suppose formally, first of all, do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Williams. Do we have comments or thoughts on this? Councillor Couch.
Well, I'd ask officers whether this is possible or not.
Over to officers.
Yeah, I think the officer view is quite clear that it's not possible. The timetable that we have presented in the paper is the most realistic yet challenging timetable we think is possible. There's probably a lot of specific points that officers could make around why it can't be brought forward anymore. I mean, I think the report does highlight that there are certain important pieces of the evidence base that still need to come back to officers. Officers will need to understand that information, ensure that is factored into the preparation of the plan, and then, of course, there needs to be the political approvals to go out to consult on the plan. So, yeah, I think the officer view is very much one of we don't believe that is achievable, and it would be wrong of us to sit here and say we think that's achievable when we clearly don't.
I'll just respond first, as it may speed it up. I'm disappointed that I've raised this for quite a long time, and I think it was 2 days ago I got a response that implied that there were 3 weeks that were wriggle room. So I am disappointed because I think time can be saved. However, I think we've spent quite a long time on this, so I'm proposing amending it. So it's, as I say, so it's noted the concerns, still looking for the key deadlines, but then saying shortening the timetable or bringing forwards when the consultation will take place if possible. So not putting a direct date, because I think otherwise we'll go into quite long, detailed conversations. Councillor Junod.
I certainly agree that if anything can be saved at any time, you know, to make sure that that the timetable is delivered and that we get our Reg 19 in on time, etc., we should do so. The problem is, I just want to make sure, I do not want to put that at risk. I do not want us to find that we cannot meet that timetable. That it really, you know, we've been talking about it earlier, that we just cannot put that at risk. It is so crucial that, that, you know, we've got to be able to meet the December deadline. It's otherwise nobody will forgive us.
Again, we're on the same page that we all, I think, are very worried that the December deadline will be missed, and what we're discussing is the most effective way to ensure that will happen. So I've now changed that bit to bringing forward a timetable for this consultation if possible, so it's not giving a set one. So I hope, Councillor Junod, that addresses your concern. I've been told our monitoring officer won't be liked, but he has a suggestion for me as well.
Apologies, councillors. One of the points that have just been made is providing councillors with key milestones that are required to meet this type timeline. I think listening to the feedback from, I would describe it as scrutinies and chambers around here, is not just having the milestones, but it's having updates on the progress to those milestones as well, be that via the advisory group or then notes to all councillors. I think that was a key message from everybody in the chamber. So I think there's just that subtlety within that point as well to have those updates as well.
I think that's right, and this is getting back to, I think it was Councillor Rock's point, that we need to bring everybody with us. So it's getting updates as soon as we can to councillors. So it's all councillors, so we know what's going on. So thank you. Do I have any other comments or questions on this? Councillor Coles.
I'm sorry, could you give us the first part of that again? Thank you. It's the first time I've heard it.
So I'll actually read out what the whole recommendation one would be, is that the Joint Committee agree to the revised timetable for the preparation of the South Warwickshire Local Plan as set out in Appendix 1, subject to noting with concern that this proposed 6-month delay to the Regulation 19 consultation gravely risks failing to meet the government's December deadline, bringing forwards a timetable for this consultation if possible, and providing councillors with key milestones that are required to meet this timeline and regular updates.
Did you want to add something about key milestones and progress against those milestones?
I said regular updates, but I'm quite happy that progress against, so what was it? No, that's fine. Progress. I'll leave it to the monitoring officer.
Yeah, I've got.
Thank you.
Through you, Leader, I've just said, providing councillors with key milestones required to meet the tight timeline and progress against those milestones.
So, any Councillor Juna?
Yeah, I think, again, we're dancing on the head of a pin. We all want everything to move as fast as possible and be delivered as fast as possible. It's a matter of, wording. Nobody's averse to getting everything done as soon as possible, or even earlier than possible, if at all, but don't forget the final deadline. That is, we must not forget that time, and delay on that at all.
That's right, and we're losing nearly 6 months anyway, so the idea is we mustn't let anything slip, and if we can claw anything back, that's good. So if there are no further comments, do we put this bit to a vote now? Or was that at the end? That's at the end.
Through you, Chair, you could put that to the vote now. There was the point made earlier by Councillor Juned in terms of engaging with ministers and civil servants at this stage, and it's whether you wanted to embed that as an additional recommendation, and also the point about thanking everybody who's been involved in the local plan as well.
Yes, indeed. I think we take it as read and granted that everybody should be thanked, because a lot of work and a tremendous amount of work has gone on, not only by officers but by the South Warwickshire Local Advisory Group. That really does need to be recognised. I have no problems with that at all. On the other one, I think that I have already spoken to officers and yourselves about we do need to make sure that we speak with ministers on a number of issues that are crucial to the delivery of this South Warwickshire Local Plan in the style and to the standards that we require for our residents. So if we can just say that we will make contact with the MPs to arrange a meeting with the relevant ministers and the civil servants that deal with local plans in Parliament. I already know of one particular person in one particular civil service. If we can arrange those meetings as soon as possible, there may be some areas in which they could help us deliver what they are trying to deliver.
Thank you, Councillor Juned. That's a slightly separate point. That's obviously trying to get the Stratford Relief Road moving forwards. The point I think for it was Warwick scrutiny was about, in effect, lobbying government about the crazy timetable and the issues there.
I think it's all part and parcel of the same thing, that we do need to speak to ministers.
Okay, so I think that's a yes, Councillor Milton. Okay, thank you. I will, before we go to the recommendations, just want to ask officers on this, because it is this point that's been a huge issue, which is the Stratford Relief Road, or Western Bypass, it seems to have different names, which Warwick members may not be so familiar with, but it is a key component of the local plan, certainly as far as Stratford colleagues are concerned. Long Marston is an ideal, if there ever is an ideal site, it's as good as you're going to get, but it would need considerable infrastructure, mainly an expensive road, and work has been done on that, but there's a funding issue, and therefore, in effect, there's a possibility. There's hope that it will be in the plan, but there's a possibility it may not be. And I have, along with my concerns about things being delayed, that this could delay the process a lot, because it's asking everybody to spend more time, in effect, doing two options. So I'll turn to John Careford, because he's, I think, can assure us that there won't be much delay because of this.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, work on looking at bypass to Stratford-on-Avon won't delay this plan any further than the delay we're already talking about tonight. We need to explore delivery around the potential road, but that is true for all our sites. We need to ensure that they're deliverable in any event. So yes, there's further work to be done. Officers will be doing that, and it does involve the engagement with government as well, I think. But just to give members the comfort that the plan that is put forward to this committee to approve for Regulation 19 consultation will be a deliverable plan. So it will not include aspects that we have no confidence can be delivered, and that could include a relief road if we don't have that confidence. So hopefully that's given the members the comfort that yes, it's a big issue that we need to grapple with and get clarity on, and if we cannot get that clarity, then it can't be included in the plan. But just to stress, that is true for every other site as well.
But it's a major one, because if it's not in, then quite a few other sites need to be. I think most of you are well aware of that. I'm noting my concern that the longer it's delayed making a decision, the harder it gets. But I think everybody's aware of that and going to work as hard as possible to come to a decision one way or another. And I'm urging that to be well before the Reg 19 starts, not to leave to the last minute. Are there any further points or questions before we go through what the recommendations are? Great. Either we've got agreement or everyone's exhausted. Graham Leach, our monitoring officer, can you run through what the recommendations are now?
Thank you, Leader. For everybody's benefit, the revised recommendation 1 is that the Joint Committee agrees to revise timetable to the preparation of the South Warwickshire Local Plan as set out in Appendix 1, subject to noting with concern that the proposed 6-month delay to the Reg 19 consultation gravely risks failing to meet the government's December deadline, brings forward the timetable for consultation if possible, providing councillors with key milestones that are required to meet this type timetable and progress report against those milestones. The other recommendations report remains unchanged. Then the Joint Cabinet Committee asks the leaders of the two councils to speak with relevant ministers and civil servants as a matter of urgency in respect to the delivery of the local plan. therefore leaving it quite broad in terms of scope for you to have those discussions. And then the final one is the Joint Cabinet thanked officers and councillors for the significant amount of work they have undertaken on delivering the South Warwickshire local plan so far.
Okay, good. So if everybody's clear on those, I will propose them from the chair. Do I? Thank you, Councillor Juned, for seconding. Do I have any speakers? Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Thank you hugely for your patience. It has been a long evening. I don't really apologise. Oh,
don't forget you've got more to do yet.
Oh, no. Yes, we just have to note a confidential appendix, so it's not very exciting, but I still can do that in public. Thank you very much for your patience. It's been a long evening, but I think because of the significance for this, because it's a huge impact on our residents for decades to come, I think it is worth us taking the time and working through these. So thank you all for your patience and working through it so seriously. So now, exclusion of public and press. I'm asking everyone to consider resolving under Section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972 that the public and press be excluded from the meeting for the following item by reason of the likely disclosure of exempt information within paragraph 3 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, following the Local Government Access to Information Variation Order 2006. I'm proposing that from the chair. Thank you, Councillor Williams, for seconding. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Into public session. We're now back in public session. It's whether there's any urgent business. I don't believe there is. So thank you very much. The meeting is now closed.